I'm going to be going through our day-to-day itinerary today and then talking about flights and insurance and some other pertinent information about this trip. Just to start off with, my name is Hannah. There's a few faces I see that I don't recognize, which is really nice. Welcome to the Women with Wings team. I was on a trip to Portugal last year and luckily enough to go there for the first time escorting this tour with Women with Wings.
5 o'clock Portugal.
And I was also escorting another trip in September right before that. So we had Portugal in October, France in September. And then the trip before that as well in 2019 in Italy, which I believe Kathy was on. And so we've been around Europe a little bit, and I'm really excited to go back to Portugal. This itinerary is slightly different than what we did last year. We're following roughly the same routes, but we've added a couple new things and taken out some things that we felt that didn't work as well. But we had such great feedback from the ladies on the tour last year that really liked it. And from people that have been joining us from last year that are interested this year or next year. So I'm really excited to be able to go back. Have lots of information to share with you, and I have some show and tell items which I'll be bringing out as I do my presentation as well. So I'm just going to start off. I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully you'll all be able to see this. Can everyone now see this first slide that says Passions of Portugal on it?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Perfect. So let's just dive right in. Our tour for next year is September 25 to October 7, 2024. I know this is a long ways in advance from now, but we have to book this this far out because Portugal is a hot destination. This year I had quite a few people traveling there in the spring and also in September, October coming up. We need to be able to organize our hotels and put deposits down for the accommodation. So that's why we're organizing it so far in advance and why we are requesting a deposit at this time. On the itinerary, the original deposit was for $1,000 at time of booking, but we've changed that now to $500 at time of booking, and then another $500 in November 2023. And then your final payment will be due 90 days prior in 2024. So we're spreading out the cost a little bit. We do realize, we're over a year in advance. So hopefully that will help with your budget. But we also do know that we have to be paying some of the hotels with their deposits, and we need to have a registered number of people in order to get going. So that's why we're asking for the deposits now.
Anna?
Yeah.
When was the final payment due? I missed that.
Oh, sorry. 90. It's due 90 days before.
Okay.
September, which will be July, around in July. We need a minimum of 10 people for this tour to go and a maximum of 15. That's not including me, and we have 2 local guides as well. So we'll have 18 people in total as a maximum. And that's because we get split between 2 smaller vehicles rather than a large bus. And that gets us really into these small towns, allows us to park really easily rather than having huge monstrosity buses and these 50 passenger buses that are really limited to where they can travel. So that's why we have that cap at 15 people. Now we are accepting single supplements as well as twin shares. Something to note, if you are interested in having a single, is that there is one night when you're in a very small area called a schist village, which is a stone village, where there's only 10 houses, and each house is for 2 people. So people that have a single supplement will have to share with another person that has a single supplement. You won't be having 2 separate rooms as well. Each house is completely different. So some people might have a king bed and a pull-out sofa. There might be 2 double beds, and there could be 2 separate rooms entirely. So every accommodation in that night is a little bit different. So that's something to think of if you are interested in having a single supplement and that's important to you. Okay, so we're just going to jump right in here. This tour starts in Porto on September the 25th and head all the way down to Lisbon throughout this week. So we have one night.
Sorry, Hannah, can I back up? Do we fly into Porto then?
Yes, you fly into Porto and you fly out of Faro, which I'll show on the next slide as well. Faro is in the Algarve. There's a couple options for flights, and I'll go through that after. You could fly into Lisbon, and then you could take the train up to Porto, or you could take another flight to Porto. But I'll go into that in a little bit more detail after. So we start in Porto. We're there for one night. Then we move inland to Vila Real, which is that second dot you can kind of see on the middle of the page there. That is the one of the main wine regions of the Vinho Verde, or green wine. I'll talk about that soon. Then we head south to the university city of Coimbra. Looks like Coimbra, pronounced Coimbra. I learned that last year, and it took me a really long time to master it. We're not staying a night there. We're just there for the day, but we're staying at the Schiff village of Cadera, which is that second dot just southeast of Coimbra. Then we head to Nazaré for the morning, which is the seaside town, and we're spending the night in Batala. And then we have one night in Óbidos and one night in Lisbon. So that's our first week. And then moving on to the second week, again, I'll be talking about this in more detail, but you'll see the first dot there is Vila Nova de Mil Fontes. So that's about an hour south of Lisbon. We're there for 2 nights. Then we move to Alajur for 2 nights, and then Sagres for 1 night. So this is really the time where if you want to, you can have the opportunity to do your laundry. Most of the hotels provide laundry service, and I know we will probably be needing it when we're hiking. So we're hiking all along the coastline here. This is the Western Algarve, starting again in Vila Nova de Mil Fontes at the top, and working our way down to Sagres. Faro is off to the right there. That's where the international airport is, and that's where most people will be departing from after the tour. There's all towns along that southern Algarve coast as well, which we won't have time to visit this time. But if you are planning to spend any extra time in Portugal, some of those towns could be cool to check out as well. Now, we're not hiking from one hotel to the next, so you won't have to, have your backpack with all your clothes on. We will be hiking either from the hotel and returning back to that same hotel, or we'll get dropped off in one spot and hike to another spot and then get picked up and back to the hotel. So you always either have your bags left at the hotel, or we will leave them safely in the vehicle for the next accommodation. So that's our second week there. So in total, we have 12 nights and 13 days. Again, our first night is in Porto. Most of the flights arrive into Porto in the afternoon, usually around 3 or 4 o'clock. We really recommend, if you have the time or the budget, to arrive a few days earlier. You can either spend some time in Lisbon or Porto or both, because we only have 1 night in each of those larger cities. It's the cities are just too big to be able to fit everything into one day. So if you can arrive there earlier, you can explore the cities on your own time. It's a very good idea to do that. Now, we only have the 1 night in each place in our itinerary because there's so much that Portugal has to offer. We really want to be able to showcase the wide variety of the culture and the smaller cities that are out there. We've heard recently that Porto and Lisbon are really busy, and for good reason. I mean, they're tourist hotspots. They're beautiful towns to visit, so much to do, but we really want to get out there and see everything Portugal has. So as you can see from this picture, Porto is very colorful. It's right on the Douro River. It's pretty hilly. Our hotel will be centrally located, but that doesn't mean it's flat. We're still going to be having to walk everywhere. So it's important to bring your walking shoes pretty much for every day. We have a guided walking tour almost every day. And in most of the cities, they are hilly. So that's something to be prepared for. On this first day, though, we won't have a guided tour. We'll get dropped off at the hotel. We have a transfer provided for the people that are arriving with the majority of the group. If you arrive early or arrive later than that, then you can take a taxi or an Uber to the hotel. Taxis are generally about 40 euros, and it takes about half an hour, 20 minutes. So not too bad. We'll be able to check into the hotel, and then before we head off for our dinner, we will have our first orientation where we will meet our 2 local guides. We have 2 people with us each time for the whole duration in Portugal. which is really great. They are obviously Portuguese, they speak English, they know the history of all these cities that we're visiting. They are avid hikers, really athletic as well. They know all these different restaurants we can visit and different museums and places to see in our free time. So they're fantastic resources to have with us, and we're so excited to be working with these same local guides that we had last year. And for each night on the itinerary, before we do dinner, we will have another orientation that talks about what the next day looks like. So that's important to be a part of, because you'll know, what to have in your backpack, especially when we're hiking, what the terrain is going to be like. You can have the appropriate footwear. Yeah, so that's perfect. From that orientation day, then we'll have our first our welcome dinner that's provided by Women with Wings. And I will be choosing a restaurant that's close to the hotel, so you won't have to walk too far on that first night. I know that you'll be busy or tired from traveling. Then the next morning, our first full day, this is when we're going to have a guided tour of Porto. This is Porto here. As I said, it was right on the Douro River. There are 7 bridges in Porto, and you can take a boat tour in your free time if you want, up and down this river to see the bridges and the city on either side of the river. On the right side is the main part of Porto, and then on the left side is where a lot of the port wine cellars are that you can visit and do tastings. We did a tasting last year, and we haven't included it in this itinerary because the one that we went to is a little bit too touristy for us. But you can have a tasting at pretty much every restaurant as well, so you don't have to have that, experience at a cellar. Now, on the right side here, you'll see this is the one of the districts called Ribeira, which is right on the water. This is a lovely kind of boardwalk you can walk along, and lots of really great restaurants to check out as well. It's a very colorful town, really nice winding streets to walk through, cobblestones. It's really beautiful. I can't wait to show it to you. This is from the other side of the city at a wine cellar looking back over to the main part of Porto. And of course, the port wine cellars. In our guided tour, we will be going to the Porto the train station, which is pictured here. And if you fly into Lisbon and you actually want to take the train to Porto, this is the train station you would arrive into. It has these beautiful, every wall has these beautiful blue and white hand-painted tiles of these really ornate scenes from the past in Portugal, really depicting what their history is. So that's going to be a part of the guided tour. Now, this bookstore is a famous bookstore. We don't have time to visit it, but if you are arriving early, you could see if you can get in. It's called the Lalo Bookstore. And for any Harry Potter fans, you might recognize that it looks a little bit like the Hogwarts Library. And that's because J.K. Rowling spent some time in Portugal when she was writing the Harry Potter books. And she depicted this based off the library. You do have to buy a ticket and line up around the block to get in. So I didn't do that last year, but it does look really beautiful. Maybe I'll do that again this year or next year. So our first day in Porto, we will have, again, the guided tour in the morning, then we'll have some free time and we'll be moving on to our next destination in the afternoon, which is Mondim. Mondim is located in the Vila Real region, which is just southeast of Porto. It's about a 2-hour drive. And this is where the Vinho Verde wine is, a big Vinho Verde wine region is. Vinho Verde, for those of you who don't know, it means direct translation is green wine, which is also a young wine. So it's not necessarily green color. It could be a red, a white, or a rosé. And after we check into the hotel, we will have some free time that evening just to chill out. The next day, we'll start off the day with a walk in the forest, and then we'll have our first wine tasting and lunch at a local winery where we will be able to try the green wine, Vinho Verde, at a beautiful location. So this is the only place in the first week where we are staying at a hotel for 2 nights. And I know this has a pool. It has what is it they call it? An infinity pool that overlooks the terraces and the countryside. It looks really gorgeous. You'll notice on my slideshows here that I haven't included any information about the hotels. That's because they aren't booked yet. They're not guaranteed. So once those are booked, I will add that to the itinerary and be able to provide some photos and some more information about that. But all the hotels are boutique style. They're all small, family run. We're not going to be staying at any large chains. That being said, with these small hotels, every room will be completely different. So some people, they might have, a view of the vineyard. Some people might have a view of the pool, and they'll chop and change as we go along. So our second day, again, we have that lunch and that wine tasting, and then evening free at the hotel to relax as you want. Maybe you want to have a swim by the pool. Sounds pretty nice. And then the next day, we're going to head to the university town of Coimbra. So Coimbra is another hilly town, of course. We got to get our steps in to get ready for the hiking, right? So we don't have a guided tour here, but in the orientation from the night before, our guides will tell us about Coimbra, about the history and what to see, what are the not to miss places. We'll get dropped off at the top of the town and we can work our way down. So the top of the city is the university district. And you might be like, why are we going to a university? But it's not like UBC. Like, this is the second oldest university in Europe. The buildings are just amazing. The architecture is so cool. There's probably about like 200 churches just in this one town. It's really, really beautiful. So we'll start at the top and we'll work our way down. And as you can see on the right side, there's these really narrow, winding kind of pathways that take us all the way down to the river. We'll have free time here, so you can explore as you want. Maybe you just want to go for a walk. Maybe you want to stop and have a coffee and a pastry. There's pastries that are known for each district or each region we're going to in Portugal. And our guides will tell us, of course, the day before what you have to have. You can try one as we go along. From Coimbra, we head to our next accommodation, which is the schist village of Cadera. Schist also means shale or stone. And these stone villages, they're dotted all along Portugal. We didn't stay here last year, and so I'm really excited to be adding this to our itinerary for next year. These villages were left in ruin, and the local government in Portugal has now introduced this program to revitalize the towns, and they've turned them into this kind of like tourism program for vacation rentals. And it's really popular for hikers and mountain bikers. You can connect these 27 schist villages ways or hiking and biking trails. So you can hike or bike to each village along the way and stay at them if you want. So we'll be able to go for a walk on one of these pathways and then staying in this village for the one night. Because there's nothing else around here, dinner's included for this night as well, which you can kind of see on this photo, the red tables down there at the end or the forefront. That's going to be the restaurant that we're eating at. This is a close-up of the houses. So there's 10 houses in total, and they're all done up inside in these kind of like cozy Portuguese kind of modern environment. Each of the houses has a little kitchenette and bathroom, and of course they'll always have 2 beds for us and a little courtyard outside as well. So this is a totally unique experience to really enjoy kind of the Portuguese environment. The next day, we are off and running back to the coast of Nazaré. This is a photo of the lighthouse in Nazaré, which inside has been revitalized into a museum about the fishing village and also information about big wave surfing. Nazaré is really famous for their big wave surfing, which generally happens in the winter time. So we won't be seeing that, but there are other surfers there, but there won't be 100 feet waves that we will see. If anyone knows the show, there's an HBO documentary called The 100-Foot Wave. I think there's like 6 episodes. It's really interesting, and it showcases Nazaré in a really nice light. So highly recommend watching that before you head to Portugal. This town here, you can see the lighthouse there at the forefront, and then it is split between 2 kind of levels. So on the upper level on the left side, that's where we get dropped off. There's some really nice churches up there. There's a really big courtyard, and surrounding the courtyard are these cute little shops and stalls and some cafes. And then to get down to the bottom side where the beach are, we take a funicular, which is fun. You could walk if you want, but I mean, the funicular is a fun experience. And down below in that seaside area, there's lots of restaurants and shops, and it's like really like a nice little seaside town. There's a boardwalk that goes all along the beach that we can visit. This photo was taken from our trip last year. Our guide on the left there, his name is Carlos, and he was trying to get us to eat some dried fish. I think one person tried it. I don't know who it was, but not for me. You can see behind the gentleman on the right, there's some octopus that are drying on the racks. So they have these drying racks all along the beach. The smell's not really that great, but it's kind of interesting, very Portuguese. So we'll have free time here after our little guided tour, so we can have some lunch and walk around. Some ladies bought some items here, like you can buy cork shoes and cork purses. I have a cork purse here, very cute. Cork is a thing to buy. So there's lots of shopping for those that like that. So we're not staying in Nazaré. Instead, we head inland to the really small town of Batla. Batla is known for this monastery, which we'll be visiting in the morning. So we head to Batla, we check into our hotel, have some free time in the evening. Probably we'll just get some dinner. And then in the next morning, we will enter the monastery and have that really nice soft morning light coming through the stained glass windows, which will be really beautiful. So we'll have a couple hours here at the monastery and then head, oh yeah, this is the cloisters inside. Last year, we were able to see the changing of the guard, which was just like totally cool. They kind of like stomped their way down the hallway. Hopefully we'll be able to see that. That was really fun. So we're there in the morning and then we transfer to Obidos. They pronounce their S's with a shush. So it looks like Obidos, but they say Obidos. This is a medieval walled city just north of Lisbon. It's just about an hour away from Lisbon. They have these like beautiful whitewash buildings. It's a really small town, has a kind of a central street that winds its way all the way up. There's lots of shops and restaurants. And then at the top of the hill is a castle that overlooks the countryside below. Now we'll have free time here to have lunch and then dinner also on our own. So some nice time, like downtime to relax. Now Obidos is really known for gingia. For those of you who don't know gingia, I didn't know it before I went there. It's a cherry liqueur and it's served in a chocolate shot glass. So I have some actually from last time. You can tell I'm excited about it. This is gingia. You can see that the color is kind of purple. So it's cherry liqueur, served in chocolate, and then you eat the chocolate shot glass after. We got to do that when we go, right? That's fun. So yeah, free time in Obidos. And then the next day we head off to Lisbon. So we're just in Lisbon for one night. So again, I recommend if you can to arrive early or stay later after the tour so you can have some more time here. We'll have our guided tour in the morning and then some free time in the afternoon. And then we have a surprise event that evening, which I'm not going to tell you about. I'm going to try and keep it a secret, at least until, we get there. Lisbon has some really cool street art. You can see on the photo on the right is this cute little cat that's sticking out. I'm a big cat lover, so I had to take a picture of that. And then on the left is a picture of my custard tart. So this is a Portuguese custard tart. It's also called, pastel de nata in Portuguese. You can get them everywhere, all over Portugal. And our guides, they said you have to put cinnamon on it. You sprinkle cinnamon and then, oh, it's so good. And you can try one in each city and compare the pastries. They originated from Lisbon and you can try them at the actual original bakery, which is from the 1800s. So if you have time to get there, I'd really recommend it. It's so good. So again, we'll have our guided tour in the morning and we will have time to go on this famous tram 28 that takes you all throughout Lisbon. Lisbon is known as the city of 7 hills. And yeah, it is truly that hilly. So being able to go in this tram for at least part of it is really fun. It's a great way to see the city, but it's also used for public transit as well. So the locals use it too. And then we'll get off and you can walk and explore as you want to for the rest of the afternoon, or maybe you just want to go back to the hotel and chill for a bit. some things that I bought in Lisbon was this kind of like an olive thing. I don't know what, probably for olives, or maybe like olive oil. It's really cute. Show and tell. Oh yeah, this is the pastéis de Belém. So everywhere else in Portugal, they call it pastel de nata, just like a Portuguese custard tart. But here in the region that's called Belém is a part of the district in Lisbon. They call it pastéis de Belém, and you could only call it when you go to this one particular bakery.
Yes, please.
Something to do in your free time is check out the Time Out Market. For those of you who don't know this market, it's put on by Time Out magazine, and there's several around the world now. It's like an elevated Granville Island market, I would say. So on the outskirts of this photo, you can see there's food stalls here. There's things that range from like donuts to sushi, pasta, fried octopus, like you can get absolutely everything. And then also connected in the same building, there's a flower market and like a meat and fish market as well for the locals, which is kind of fun to go check out. So yeah, so then we'll have our surprise event that evening. And then the next day, we're off on the second part of our tour down to the coast, Vila Nova de Mil Foz. On the way, we're going to stop and do a wine tasting as well at a local winery. The winery that we're going to is really focused on like environmental sustainability. So they reuse their paper wine labels. They use like recycled paper and recycled cork for their bottle stops as well, which is pretty cool. Again, this is the route that we're taking for the hiking. So we'll be doing 4 hikes in total, and we don't have a day off in between. Now we've done that because the hikes are not as long as what we did last year. In average, they're going to be about 10 kilometers a day or about 4 hours. Now we're not straight hiking. We'll be stopping for lunch and snacks and photo ops, things like that. So there's always going to be an opportunity to stop and relax. We don't hike at a really fast pace, and it is generally we're going to be following the coastline quite a lot. So you can never get lost. You're always going to have the ocean on your right. I just wanted to talk to you about the terrain here. Okay, so it's really varied along the coastline. You could get like on the right side, this kind of like deep, really soft sand to walk in, which can be a little bit hard on your calves, and also getting sand in your shoes. Like it's going to happen. On the left side, there's more like a hard packed sand to walk through. Again, hard packed sand here. Gorgeous views of the coastline. And all along the coast, there's kind of brushland. There's not a lot of trees, and it can be really sunny in the Algarve. So it's important to be wearing a sun hat and sunscreen all the time if you can. That being said, this is a photo from our trip last year. This is actually on one of the good days. So the first day of our trip, it just like downpoured with rain. It was horrible. So we all went and bought these rain ponchos, and we wore them for pretty much the whole time. But it's very like the weather changes really fast there on the coastline. So one time you would have like your rain jacket and the poncho and rain pants, and then in the next 5 minutes you're just taking everything off and it's like hot and you're walking in a tank top and shorts. So it's important to have a nice like larger style backpack that you can stuff your jacket and your pants and that you're not going to be wearing. Well, that's me. So you can kind of tell in this photo from the terrain here. So it's like really hard packed gravel, but also loose rocks too. And in some instances, we're going to have to be crossing ravines and gullies. So we'll be going, most of the time we're like walking along the coastline, and then sometimes we'll have to dip down into that ravine and then back up on the other side. Now it's not a really long, steep like slog. It's really, usually it's pretty quick. So it's like down and up. And that's where we're going to be seeing the elevation change. And it's usually this type of terrain here. So that kind of like loose rock. So important to have a really good sole on your shoe, something really grippy. Also, having hiking poles is really nice because as you're going down, it kind of acts as an extra foot for you, a little bit more stability. And then as you're coming up on the other side, you kind of like lift yourself up a little bit. Now we have our 2 guides with us the whole time and myself. So there's always, an elbow to hold on to as you're going down these steeper sections if you feel the need to. We will always be hiking together, usually someone at the end and someone at the front leading the way, and you always have a hiking buddy with you.
Anna, I have a question about the poles. I think when we went to Croatia, you guys took a duffel and carried all the poles. Is that what you do for this as well?
Yes, I certainly do. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to do a checked bag this time. So anyone that's in the Vancouver region, what we did last year, we had a meeting a couple of weeks before the trip, and anyone who was there could bring me the poles and I could take them with me in my check bag. The guides, they also provide a couple options. They have, I think, usually 2 on hand as well. So people that maybe don't normally hike with hiking poles, maybe just want to have it for one of the days, or, you know, just to get up the hill, they'll have them on hand for you too. Good question. So all along the coastline that we'll be seeing these gorgeous beaches and really tempting water. It's very cold though, so we're not going to be going for any swims on our hikes. Even the surfers, they wear their wetsuits all the time. But yeah, just stunning. Hopefully we'll have some nice weather. And we'll end up in the town of Sagres, which is the southwesterly most point of Europe. And we're here just for one night. This town is really cute. They have some really nice restaurants and some shops, and lots of like surfing places as well. You can kind of see in this photo, there's some surfers out on the water. Now, when we were there, I went and bought these cute little they're like soup bowls, and they have sardines in them. They're really cute. That's from one of the stores there. That evening, we're going to have our farewell dinner in Sagres. And then the next day, we will get transferred to the Faro airport, which is the airport that we will be leaving from. Unless if you want to stay any longer, we can transport you also to, you know, another town in the Algarve or train station or whatever, but we can talk about that. Now, we're not just hiking on the second week. We have some other fun activities planned. This is a photo of the market in Alajur, which is it's just like a locals market, but a lot of the ladies last year said they really wanted to buy pine nuts. It was so important because they grow pine nuts in Portugal. They're equally as expensive there as they are here, but it was really nice to be able to buy them locally. And they have lots of really fun things as well, different types of nuts and fruit and veg. They have these these fig bars that are really tasty as well if you get them. One of the things we're doing after hiking is going to a Medrano distillery. Now, Medrano is a liquor, and it's distilled from a strawberry tree plant. Now, this is the berry. It's not a strawberry, as you can tell. It kind of looks like a salmon berry to me. And they make it into a liquor, and we get to taste it in cocktail form. And this is the distillery we're going to. It's called Junior Jacques. And you can buy this there. It's really cool. It's a little, see if I can show you, a little like test tube of like little testers. So we can make our own cocktails at home. And one of them, they come like this. I haven't even made this yet, and I've had it since October. And they give you a recipe, and you can make your own cocktails at home, which is really fun. We'll have to do that soon. And we'll be going for our first winery visit, as well as we're making our way to Villanova del Nalfons. We were able to put on this really fun sunset and sparkling wine night as well. So at one point we went to this point in one of the beaches and watched the sunset. Doesn't look like it's happening with that gray cloud, but it was really nice after. And we had some sparkling wine. You can see from this photo what the ladies are wearing. So at night it can get really chilly. It's pretty windy along the coastline, so it's a good idea to have a nice light jacket and maybe a scarf as well. And during the day it can get up to about 25 and sunny. So having, you know, a lot of different variety of clothing to go with each weather is a good idea. Okay, so that's the end of our trip in Portugal. A couple other things I wanted to talk to you about. I'm just going to exit out of my screen here so I can see you all in full screen. So let's talk about flights. Now, it's too early to book your flights now, but they will be available round trip tickets will be available around November of this year. We highly suggest that you book a round trip ticket if you are not using points, because it's generally less expensive than booking 2 one-ways. If you're using points, let's say like British Airways executive points, and you really are interested in booking business class, it's very important to book a year in advance, because there's not a lot of availability with points tickets, especially with BA. So there's a few options. So there's British Airways that goes into Porto and out of Faro, and you transfer through London Heathrow in both of those directions. You could also fly with Air Canada, and they go Vancouver, Toronto, Lisbon, and then Lisbon, you can either, if you're going into Lisbon early, you could take the train to Porto, or you could fly with TAP Portugal, TAP Portugal. Yes, Kathy?
Sorry, can you go back to the one that goes into Porto? What did you say that was?
Oh, Air Canada. Porto, British Airways.
Yeah, I don't want to go anywhere near Lisbon.
Okay.
or Toronto. Or you know what?
Yeah. So some people have Aeroplan. That's why I mentioned Air Canada.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's that option. And then there's also KLM, which goes through Amsterdam. Air France as well on Sundays, they go through Paris. Now, Air France and KLM, they kind of alternate itinerary dates. So we'll know that in November what's available when. And then there's also Lufthansa, and they go through Germany.
When you say and then from Amsterdam to Porto, is that what you're saying? Okay.
That's right. Yeah. Now, I had booked, my flights were with British Airways last year, and something to note is that the flight travel in general is like changes all the time, right? So I booked my flights about 8 months in advance, and I had about 4 schedule changes. And one of them resulted in me then having to overnight in London on the return, because that's the only option that there was, and I couldn't cancel my flight. So that's really important to know if you're booking that far in advance. We generally recommend 12 to 8 months in advance if you can, because that's when you're going to see the lower fares. But you will know that you're going to have a schedule change. There's just no way around it. So if you decide to book on your own or book with us, we can always help you through those changes as well. And we can also help you with points tickets too. For anyone that has Aeroplan or British Airways Executive, we can help you book those. Okay, so yeah, again, flying into Porto and out of Faro. Or if you wanted to have any extra time, flying into Lisbon is the main airport in Portugal, but it's quite easy to be able to get to the other airports as well. Okay, I wanted to talk about insurance too. So medical insurance is mandatory for this trip. It's not necessary to buy it this far out in advance. You could really buy it up until the day before you depart. But we do work with 2 insurance companies, Manulife and Allianz. And so we can provide you with a quote to compare for both of those. I know some of you will probably have your own insurance as well, either on your credit card or privately. So just important to look at that and see what your policy is. Now, trip cancellation insurance, it's not required, but I highly recommend it because you're paying for this so far in advance. You never know what the travel industry is going to throw at us nowadays. So we recommend having insurance as you make a payment. So when you put your first deposit down, $500, get insurance for that. Pay your second deposit, get insurance for that. Buy your flights, get insurance for that. And then buy your final payment, get insurance for that. So you're covered as you go. It's really important. Most of the insurance now, you will be able to cancel for unforeseen circumstances. COVID is now not an unforeseen circumstance. It's considered like a common flu. So if you got it and you decided that you didn't want to travel, usually it's not going to be a cancelable event. But again, it's per circumstance. So we will have to discuss that if and when it happens. Hopefully that doesn't happen. We have put on our website the itinerary, the frequently asked questions sheet, and the registration form. Now, the frequently asked questions is a good source of information. It has more details about what's included in the program and what's not included, some information about the weather, some clothing options, how much extra money we think that you could bring based on the meals that are not included in the itinerary. I'll touch on that briefly actually now. So we have 4 dinners included, 4 lunches on the second week, which are packed lunches, 1 lunch on the first week that is with the wine tasting, and breakfast is served daily. So there's not a lot of meals that you're going to be needing to be paying for. So we're saying about 600 euros total. Now, of course, that depends on how much wine you like to drink. Each to your own. And then also if you want to have cash for any other little fun things like ice creams and, you know, souvenirs and things like that. Now, everywhere takes a credit card. You don't always have to have cash, but if you are dining with other people, the restaurants in Portugal do not split the bill like we split the bill in Canada. So it's best to have cash with you. So if you are dining with people, that you can all pay separately with your cash, and or maybe one person pays by card and then everyone else pays in cash later. Also interesting with Portugal is that you can ask for tap water. They won't give it to you. They're going to give you bottled water and they're going to charge you for it later, but you won't know. So they usually charge about €2 per bottle. So it's not that much, especially if you're splitting with other people. They also provide these little nibbles on the table and you think it's included, but it's not. So it's like olives and bread and some little cheeses, and they're really tasty, but they'll just bring it out to you and you're like, oh, this is nice. You start eating away and then you get it added to the bill, and sometimes you don't even eat it. Like sometimes you order an appetizer and you're like, I don't need that stuff, but you eat it, right? Because it's there. So you can always wave them away and you don't get charged for it. Some fun things to know about Portugal. The most important thing to know, though, about this tour and about all of our Women with Wings tours is that flexibility is key. Because we're booking this tour so far in advance, there are things that could happen that we would have to maybe change the itinerary around a little bit. If we're in destination and the weather is really bad, for instance, on the hiking, we might kind of change that about. Maybe we go and visit a different town and do a different experience instead of hiking that day. But we'll always be, you know, discussing things as they happen, and hopefully things won't change too much. But again, you never know. Does anyone have any questions at this time? No. Well, if you ever think of anything, just send me an email or give me a call. We can also talk about, you know, your hiking ability privately if you want to, or any concerns that you might have about this. So we are accepting registration forms right now. We already do have one signed up. Woo! And we have about 10 other people that have said that they're very interested in the tour. So again, we're accepting a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 15. And we're hoping to have those numbers in by July so we can start getting this booking going, getting the hotels underway as well. And yeah, everything that if you need the registration form or the itinerary, again, that's on our website for you to reference and send out to any of your friends. And we'll talk to you soon. Obrigada. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.